Hello YouTubers, today's video is Data Ninja Makes Easy Pivot Tables in Microsoft Excel. So for those of you who work with data in Excel, you'll no doubt come across the pivot table functionality. Pivot tables are a very easy way to analyze data in various ways and build your own analytical tables with various filters and various value functionality. So please follow this video, which will get you started straight away in building your own pivot tables. So um, first off, we're going to need some data. You may have your own data, but if not, there's a lot of sample data you can access online, and I've got a link here for um, Microsoft Learn sample financial download, and this is in the comments if you want to grab this link and download the data yourself. So I'm just going to copy this link here, and I'm just going to quickly download the data for you. One moment. So here's a Google search bar. I'm just going to paste that link in. Now, this is Microsoft Learn sample data, and this file is called financial sample. So if you just click this link, you'll quickly download a financial data sample from Microsoft. Now, this is a good size table to get started with learning pivot tables. You know, there's not too many columns. There's probably a dozen columns or so, and we've got various kind of descriptive fields like product data, and we've got various value fields, so things like counts of units sold, monetary values, which are good for testing in pivot tables. So this is just a standard table. Now, one thing to think when you create a pivot table with a data range, right? Excel will pick up the first row as the field headers. Now these field headers will be the names of the fields that you will see within the pivot table menus. Now one thing to make sure before you create a pivot table, just make sure the first row is populated, so you've actually got field headers in here. Now all of these have unique field header names which all work well for the pivot table. So all you do now is select the columns. This is one way to select your range. It's an easy way. You can actually create Excel pivot tables by selecting the table range, like I've done here, right? But an easy approach I always take is just to select the columns, just drag over the columns, and then go Insert Pivot Table. Now, when you insert the pivot table, Excel will create a pivot table on a new worksheet. So we've got our data here on sheet 1, but when I press pivot table, it will confirm the range. So you can see here I've selected sheet 1, columns A to P, and then by default Excel will create the pivot table on a new worksheet. You can specify to create it on the existing worksheet, but for this one we're going to create on a new worksheet. Now, Excel has now created a new sheet here called Sheet 2, right? And the pivot table is created in the top left of the sheet, and currently it's blank because we haven't selected any fields. Now, what Excel will do is Excel will then create the pivot table field menu on the right hand side here. We can see that. Now, as I said before, Excel has picked up the first row of data. It's auto-generated, it's auto-selected this as the field names that you'll see here. So you can see segment, country, product, okay? Now, Excel, the pivot table there then has 4 areas here. It's got filters, columns, rows, and values. Now, Excel will let you add any of these fields to any of these sections, right? So for instance, I could just add this to country. Country I can add to filters, columns, rows, or values, right? But we'll come on to values a bit more in a moment because um, Excel here by default has returned the values as a count. But we're going to build a we're going to build a basic kind of pivot table to analyze our sales data. So let's say we're going to pick let's say we want to look at total units sold and um, sales and profit, okay, um, by country and by product, okay. So we're going to build a basic analytics table. So here we've added country into the rows, and we'll add product here. Now this will create, because I've added both these fields into the rows, it's actually, you can see here, it's actually matrix the product beneath the country. Okay, now one option here that I like to do is to actually use classic pivot tables, so we actually get more of a grid here. Okay, now what this will do is this will put the product next to the country in more of a grid kind of format, and then here what I like to do is actually repeat the names. So go repeat item labels. You can see here I've then got quite a nice view of Canada and then all the products. Now coming on to the analytics here, let's say um, let's do a basic count of units sold. Now Excel will let you add any field to the values section, but certain types of data naturally fit the values sections more. So things like counts, revenue amounts, they're much more natural fields to actually put in the value, because they're fields you're more likely to be mathematically summing, basically summing or averaging or percentage of. So let's just go in here, basic view, country, um, product, and then count of units sold. Now, if I just click back in the pivot table, the field list will appear on the right. Now, let's add another value field. So let's look at gross sales and profit here. So you can see here, I've quite quickly built quite a sort of powerful view in a very short space of time, just using the pivot table. So basically, um, if I was to manually try and build this table using formulas in Excel, it would have taken me, maybe 10-20 minutes. But I very quickly just selected my range of data and very quickly knocked up quite a quite a lot of work within the pivot table, but very quickly. So I've got country, product, I've got some of units sold, some of gross sales, some of profit. Now that's really displays the power of pivot tables and how quite quickly you can analyze data, and you can actually, with effective pivot table use, you can do a lot of work quickly. So let's go a bit more on into the actual different kind of aspects of the pivot table. Now here I've chosen to do country and product side by side. Now an option is I could actually add product like this, and just um, I'll make it a bit simpler with the values. You can see here I've changed the view, and I've put Canada, and then I put the product across the top here. Now this is kind of your preference, how you want to build your pivot table view, and it's really for you to kind of test what you prefer and what you're actually trying to use the data with. But as you can see here, I can flip between adding my product into my rows or my columns really quickly, and likewise country. I could change the view to product by having country across the top. Again, this is really for your preference, how you want to analyze your data, how you want it to appear. Maybe you want to present it, or maybe someone's requested some data from you, and um, it's really up to you how you meet that request or how you want to present the data. But you can see the pivot tables, it's very quick to test different views, different viewability of flipping between rows and columns and moving fields around within your pivot table. Now, I'm just going to add a few more values back in here. Again, it's really up to you how much data you want to analyze in your values. So here I've just got sum of units, but quite quickly, quite often you're going to want to analyze more than one value field type. So I've gone sum of units sold, sum of gross sales, sum of profit. Now in the real world, again, it's really for you to define how you want to present your data or what requests you're trying to meet. But you can see how quickly um, you can build out a pivot table and test it yourself, which is what I'd recommend, is definitely downloading this data source and just testing it yourself. And it's very naturally intuitive. Um, Now, another key feature of pivot tables is filters. So you'll see here in the top left, we've got the filters section. Now, filters again is a real powerful way to kind of work with pivot tables, because you can drill down into your data very quickly. So let's say hypothetically here, I might get a request to analyze this view, but I might need to see it by different years. Now, quite quickly, if I add this into the filters section, you'll see the filter appear above the pivot table, and all the options will appear in the menu. So you press the menu down button and you can quickly just change this to just 2014 or 2013, and that filter will apply across the whole table. And as you can see, it's very quick way to drill down into your data using filters. Again, I would just recommend having a play with the pivot table, so I can quite quickly just add year here into my columns. Okay, and then I could see 2013 and 2014 split down like this. So these three are 2013. Again, sometimes you just want to repeat the item labels to make it clear, but you can see quite quickly here, I can actually just um, I can quickly see my data side by side, 2013 and 2014. I could even just put year in here like this. I can get a drill down on 2013 and 2014. And a thing to pay attention to is the order of the fields. So you see in the rows, I've got year, country, and product. Now, Excel will pick up the first field as the first column. Now, this can influence how the data is viewed quite significantly. If I just drag year into here, you can see how that totally changes the view. The view's gone from, the view is now Canada, product, and then year. So another thing to think about is the hierarchy of your data. Again, how do you want to present your data, or what is the request? And that will define things like the order of the fields in your data, and things like whether you put year in the columns, you could put year as a filter. It really is for you to kind of design the pivot table, and that is where nothing really beats you downloading, you getting some of your own data, or you just downloading this test data and just playing with pivot tables. You could probably pick it up within a few hours. You could get quite nimble at building a pivot table, building different views. Now, finally, let's just go into a little bit more on values. So Excel, within the pivot tables, Excel will actually default to a sum. So when you drag a value field into the values section, it Excel will default just to sum it. Now that's a default, and that is quite commonly what you'll want to do. But there's many other ways you can actually view values. Now to test this, I'm just going to drop down. I'm just going to take a few of these value fields out, and we'll just go with, we've just got sum of gross sales in there. Now, if you want to if you want to do a different function than the sum, you press the down menu here and you select value field settings. Now, you can see here you've then got different options. So you can go count, and now count is obviously very different to sum. Count will just count the number of values. That's quite a common view. And then there's other less used ones, but things like average, max, min. So I could go average, so that's the average gross sales by country and product. I can then go max, so this would give me max, the max value of gross sales by country and product. And there's min, there's quite a few different value types to test, but the most common ones you'll use will most likely be sum and count will be overwhelmingly the most common. So I'm just going to turn that back to sum, and then another area of values is you can show values as, and you'll have different options here. So if I just go show values as, it gives, and select the drop down menu, I get a variety of different options here as well. Now these can be really powerful, where you can actually go things like percentage of grand total. So I can see here, this is quite powerful. I can see Canada has a 21% of total gross sales, and France 20%, Germany 19.4. Again, I can quite quickly sort of change this view. I could add a year in here, year into the columns, and then I can see actually um, actually I could see the percentage of sales by country, product, and year. Now, what you'll see here is the percentages are actually of the grand total, but again, I might just want to change that to percentage of column total, so I can see this by year. So here I can see Germany has declined from 2013 to 2014 relatively. They were 23% of sales in 2013, and they dropped to 18.4% in 2014. So again, it's really for you to design your pivot table, and all of this comes down to what you're trying to do with the data, what you're trying to present, or what requests you've had. So um, this is just to display different ways of viewing the data, but it will really be for you to design your own pivot table when you get going. I'll just take you through a couple more value options here. So let's just put year back in the filters. Now you can actually add value field filters twice to a table. So you see I've added gross sales here, and it's got a tick on gross sales. I'm actually going to add it again. Right, now you can see it's now called this sum of gross sales too. Now what Excel's done is it's defaulted this gross sales here to sum of gross sales as absolute amount here, right? Now, but I've still got my gross sales as a percentage of the column. So this is quite a powerful view in the real world where you might be presenting your data and you want to show both the sum of your gross sales, but you want to also show sum of gross sales as a percentage. So you can see quite quickly here, um, you can just add that value field twice to your pivot table. Let one of the values just sum as an absolute amount, and then edit your second value to display percentage of total. You can see how that's quite a powerful view, and how quickly you can build that if you just get quite nimble yourself with pivot tables, and just with a bit of practice you can actually build very powerful views. Again, here somebody could just filter this, and they could see this by year again. So you could see how powerful that is. And just finally, you can even add a bit of conditional formatting to pivot tables. So if you just select a column here, I could just add a little bit of color to this to kind of um, show, just to give a bit of color, a bit of visual graphics. I might not just select the whole range there. I might just exclude the 100%, and then I can go with I can actually add data bars, or I can add color scales to my table. This color scale will give green for the highest value there. So that's another thing which is worth testing, is actually adding some conditional formatting to your pivot tables. So just finally, as I've said throughout, nothing beats just testing pivot tables yourself. Just download the data or get your own data, create a pivot table, and just have a play at building different views, different rows, different columns, different value types, and within a few hours you can get highly proficient with a pivot table because they're very intuitive. And that's it for today's video. Please subscribe to my channel so I can keep bringing you content like this and help you become a data ninja. Thank you. Goodbye.